Hi guys, welcome to Karlpopewoodcraft. In this video we're going to be making this shoe and boot storage unit which also doubles up as a nice sturdy bench. It's made up out of 4 reclaimed scaffolding boards. Some of the tools involved in today's project then, which you'll see, are a Karl pocket hole master system jig. We use this simply to speed up the process of the job because we wanted to get it finished in one day. However, it's not essential. You could glue these boards up and wait overnight. Another tool that we use then, which you may or may not have, is a table saw. But again, it's not essential. You could use a circular saw with a straight edge guide to rip your boards down, or you could use a track saw. The joinery then that we use is really simple. It's butt joints with glue and screws. All you'll need is a couple of clamps to pull things together while you drive those screws home. What we'll do now then is we'll go have a quick look at the plans and the dimensions, and then we'll move over to the miter saw and start cutting these boards down to the rough dimensions before moving on to ripping them down at the table saw.
Backtracking a little bit, before I came over to the miter saw, I took all these boards outside and I give them a really good stiff brushing off to get as much of the cement and as much of the rubbish off as I could. I took the bands off either side because scaffolding boards come with steel bands on, and then I started cutting them down at the miter saw, putting a clean square edge on. I then took them over to the table saw and run them through the table saw, again putting a nice clean square edge on. This gives us a good starting point to start the project. The board that you see me running through the table saw now had an almighty crack right down the middle of it, and it would have been fit for anything else but this project.
Yes, reclaimed timber might be cheap, especially these scaffolding boards, but there's a couple of major downfalls with these. Covered in cement, crap. When you're putting them through machines like your table saw, they start to drag. You need to keep cleaning it, oiling it, waxing it, whatever to make them slide along. You really do need to try and make sure they're clean beforehand. If you put them through your thicknesser, it just destroys the blades. Also, like now, we've just found a nail right in the middle of what was hidden. So I'm going to bash that out now, and then we're just going to check the boards again, because I was just about to run this one straight down the middle to rip it down. But yeah, cheap, but it can be more hassle than it's worth. But sometimes customers just want reclaimed timber, so just got to bear with it. Look at that. Bet that was a bricklayer. Don't want that in the eye, would you? Right. We'll finish off doing these and then we'll get back to you.
Scaffolding boards are approximately 9 inches wide, so to get your big size 9s on there or your butt on the bench, we need to widen these, and we do this in the following way.
If you've got eagle eyes, you'll have noticed when I was running these scaff boards through the table saw, one of them had an almighty crack all the way down the middle. And if you'd have put a lot of pressure on that, it'd have snapped. And if you'd have cut a few inches either side of it, it'd have definitely snapped. So what we did is we used that piece for the 2 adjoining pieces, which are going to make the boards wider for our glue up. And we cut either side of that crack, and we managed to get rid of most of it. We got left with a little bit either side there, just a tiny bit, now it's structural. And what we did is we stabilised that with super glue, and then we put a bit of activator on just to speed it up, clamped it. By the time we've jointed these 2 boards together and glued them up and pocket holed them, that'll be super strong, stable, no need to worry about that. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to get on pocket holing these boards together. That's going to save us time, and we're just going to be able to move straight on with the project. You don't need to do it. You could biscuit these, or you could just glue them straight up and leave them overnight, but we want to get moving with this project and get it done today, so we're going to use the pocket holes. So I'm just going to mark where I'm going to put these screws, and I'm going to alternate down the board which side I'm going to put them on. Don't need to do overkill, that should be plenty. Same on that one, and then that's going to be the bench top seat, and that's going to be the bottom, and then we're just going to need to do the dividers. Got an air leak. You don't need to kick the arse out of the pocket hole screws. All you need to do is put enough on to hold the boards together while the glue dries. That's all you need them for. couple of clamps help squeeze it together. Hold it in position while you screw them in. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this board, which is 1.8 meters long. Once they're together, it's not going to be adding any strength. Well, it will be, but it doesn't need to because the glue will hold it together anyway. But it means we can crack on.
And then for everyone's favourite part of the project, the part what I normally get Jacob and Lily to do, is the sanding. We sand everything down to 80 grit, no more, no less, that's just enough. We then fill the pocket holes that we've created with some doweling. The doweling you need to fill your pocket holes is 9mm.
We've got 4 of these divider pieces for the shoe rack / bench, and we're going to hide the pocket holes that are unsure, or possibly unsure, but the ones on the underside of the bench and the underside of the actual bottom shelf, there's no point filling them ones because they're never going to be seen. We've just got some 9.5mm dowel and then this flush cut saw, and then you just sand that down to 80 grit, same as the rest of it. The first thing we're going to attach together is this middle shelf, and we've got a couple of spaces here. I'm just going to make a line where I want to put to pre-drill my holes on both sides, and I'm going to drill straight through the centre of here, and then about 1.5 inches in. And I've gone all the way through the other side, so from that side I know I can go straight into there and countersink. Just a small countersink, because we're not going to plug these, we're going to use some nice black screws. And then the same on the other side. Then I'm just going to pop it onto these spacers. A clamp on both sides, and then I'll drive some screws in through both ends, securing the piece permanently in position. This is an important part. We need this dead central, and the way we're going to do that is we butt this straight up to one of the sides. We measure that distance, which is 860mm, and then we half that, so that's 430, and then that's how much space we need either side of the middle unit. So we put that in the middle, and if we've got 430 here and 430 here, this should be perfectly aligned in the centre. When we're doing these as well, we're adding plenty of glue. Yeah, you might have a bit of glue squeeze out, but this is old spruce boards, not the strongest material in the world, so plenty of glue and some nice long screws. Get it in the house overnight to dry in the warmth, and it should be rock solid the next day. And this is the bottom, so it doesn't matter about any screws being visible here, we can just drive them straight in and flip it over, it doesn't matter. Right, I'll drive these in now.
After adding the remaining screws, I found a piece of 2x1 pine, and I used this to create 3 feet for the bottom of the bench. I simply attached this using glue and brad nails, and I used a speed square to make sure everything was nice and square and flush at the front. All the remaining screws get hidden with plugs that were cut at the drill press. Here you can see Jacob popping the plugs out with a screwdriver before I put some PVA glue in the holes, and then hammer the plugs in and then cut them flush with a Japanese flush cut saw. We then cut one more piece of spruce down at the miter saw, which we ripped earlier on at the table saw, and we're going to use this to put a little bit of trim all the way around the bench, just to make it look a little bit more ornate. And then to finish off the bench for the arms, we just did a nice rounded pattern which I drew on just by eye, and then I took it over to the bandsaw. I cut this out, I refined it on the bobbin sander, and then I did the exact same again for the other side, using the first one as a template. Jacob sanded everything down to 120 grit with the orbital sander, so everything's lovely and smooth now. And now both Jacob and Lily are applying the dark oak wax. So they just brush this on, and then they both wipe it off with a clean dry rag. That's how dark it looks before you wipe it off, and then when you wipe it off you can see the grain and all the rusticness underneath. So we keep our brushes in some white spirits, and that way they stay moist and they don't go dry and sticky. And then when you apply it, like so, goes on really easily, and it gets right into all the nooks and crannies and gaps. And then when you buff it off an hour later, you get a lovely smooth shiny finish.
See a little bit of screws there.
Yeah.
Get your brush and go like fill them so you can't see them. That's the project complete then, guys, and I think you'll agree it turned out pretty well for what it is. Some old reclaimed scaffolding boards. Looks really nice, be great in like a farmhouse or in a rustic hallway. And I've also made the client a huge coat rack to go behind with made in hull hooks on there, and a shelf out of the same timber and the same finish, so I think they'll go really well together. Is there anything I'd do different today? No, I'm pretty happy with the way it's gone. The only thing I would say is I'm not overly keen on using reclaimed scaffolding boards. It's just the amount of cement and stuff like that you get on them and what it does to your tools in your workshop. So I do like the finish, but I'm not overly keen on working with the material. If you like today's video, then don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. And if you hit that notification bell, you'll be notified every time I release a video. If you're a regular viewer and you'd like to support the channel financially, you can do that through one-off donations on PayPal, Patreon and the new channel membership on YouTube. If you want to see any of the tools that I've used in today's projects, I'm adding these all the time on my website, Karlpopewoodcraft.com. And if you go to the My Tools section, you'll see all the links below. If Amazon don't have the tool that I use, then I put a substitute on there, and most of the finishes and tools and things that I use, I'm adding on there all the time. So you can click on them and they'll take you directly to what I use or a substitute to what I use. And then if you purchase something from there, I also get a little bit of financial help from Amazon. I'll catch you on next week's video, guys, then, which is a small part storage, and I'm going to be using a new tool and some nicer materials on that one. So I look forward to that, and I'll see you then. Bye.